shutting you guys down.
Thank you.
Cromwell Board of Education to order at 7 o'clock p.m. Alessandra, would you take roll call, please? Will not be here tonight.
Mrs. Cloutier? Here. Ms. Franklin?
She also will not be here.
Mrs. Kelleher?
Here?
Mrs. Lamberson? Here. Mrs. Post? Here. Mrs. Russ?
Here.
Mr. Schuman?
Here.
Mr. Zabrowski?
Here.
Olivia Kolkowski? Here. Julia Bay Mordova? Any town council or board of finance?
Don't see any.
Roll call is complete.
Thank you. All right, so just before we start our meeting tonight, I just did want to mention the passing of our mayor, Alan Spotts. He had his services over the weekend. I'm sure you've all seen various articles about him. He's been a volunteer in town for so many years, from Little League, youth football, town council, RTC, so many things, everything except Board of Ed, I think, although I do believe his wife served a term. So between the two of them, they've done so much for our community. And just especially, I think what I remember most about Alan is he was just trustworthy. I felt he was someone that I could trust. But I just wanted to take a moment and recognize him, and we're thinking of his wife, Karen, at this time. He's brought so much joy too. He also chaired, and I want to mention also the Riverport Festival. He did that for so many years, and people really remember that. That was a lot of work. So he had so many positive attributes, and there's also a memorial fund in his name if anyone is interested. It's listed in its obituary if anyone would like to donate. And I know Dr. Macri had a few words she wanted to say.
Getting to know Mayor Spotts, and more so in his role as mayor. I just felt very comfortable calling him and having conversations, difficult conversations, because it's never easy to have conversations with politicians. It's hard, and he always made me feel so comfortable. And even when it was difficult, and they were difficult, I truly believe that he always put his commitment to this town, and everyone does. I don't think anybody would doubt that. First, he loved Cromwell so very much, and right up until we would text and I would check on how he was doing, and he was always worried about the town while he was in the hospital, and it just goes to show you just how much he cared, and he really cared about the people. That's and at his funeral yesterday, Miss Cochiola and I attended. You could just see all the townspeople, and it was private, of how he had impacted, and something that ran through the entire the services were that how much he volunteered and how many things he really felt passionate about, and he dedicated his life to service. I guarantee if we counted all the hours of service and community work and volunteerism that we did, he probably could have gotten a job and made millions. But instead, he chose to make a difference in his retirement. So I just, I'm going to miss him. And I, of course, am thinking of Karen and their family. And I'm sure everyone will miss Mayor Spotts. Will definitely feel that his presence is gone.
Thank you. So if we could just take a moment of silence to reflect on Mr. Spotts. Thank you. Okay, on our agenda, first we'll approve our agenda. I don't have any additions or deletions. Do you have anything to add or delete? Okay. And a quick overview, we'll be celebrating some new staff tonight. Notice we do have a new student representative, so that's exciting. We have District Teacher of the Year, and also an ESS presentation that we're looking forward to. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The agenda is approved. So first on our agenda is celebrating our new faculty and staff. We did just have a new hire reception. We were able to meet so many of our new staff out there, and I believe some of us are with us still, but we're so appreciative of them. Did you have any words you want to add?
And decided to stay, please stand. We'd like to just recognize you quickly. And I'm noticing Mrs. Tobin is here, Sue Tobin. She's a little late, but that's okay, Mrs. Tobin. We still love you. School psychologist at CMS. Welcome to all of you. And like I say, we only want the best here in Cromwell. And I think we found it. It was a pleasure to meet with so many wonderful people for positions that we have. And we're lucky that we were able to fill almost all, 99.9%. We're in the lucky zone, because we'll talk about that a little later. But thank you to everyone, and congratulations, and we're happy you're here.
Thank you. And also thank you to Michelle Tomorrow for all of your hard work with your hiring. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to correspondence. Do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
Okay. Public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'll spare you the reading of them. We'll move on to the introduction of new student reps and report from student representatives. We have the high school with us tonight. We have Olivia Polkowski. Would you like to start?
Sure. So Cromwell High School had its first day of school on August 31st. The day was filled with many welcome backs and smiles. Teachers, with the help of student council, was able to successfully have an in-person open house for the first time since COVID hit. This past Sunday, seniors came together in the morning to paint their parking spots. This was a fundraiser for the senior class for future activities, and it was a ton of success. If you want to take a look too at the parking spots, they're really cute. They're going to be completed this coming Sunday too, so we'll have more spots then. Next week, the seniors will be painting the shed, an annual Cromwell tradition where students mark their initials on the shed to mark their goodbyes in Cromwell. And a new part of the student schedule has been implemented this year called advisory. It's a time where students get to see the teachers they would like for extra help, or even time for clubs to meet when sports get in the way after school for student activities. And finally, Cromwell High School will be administering the PSAT for grades 9, 10, 11 on Wednesday, October 12th.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Olivia? Okay, and we have a new student rep this evening. And let me see if I get her name right. Julia Baimadora. Is it close?
Baymardova.
Baymardova. Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's
Would you like to give your report?
Okay. The fall season has just begun. The football team had their first game on Thursday the 8th, winning 41-0 against Morgan. The girls volleyball team lost their first game against Coggins 0-3 on Thursday the 8th. The boys soccer team had their first game on Thursday the 8th, losing to Lyme Old Lyme 1-2. However, on Saturday the 10th, they won against Bolton 3-1. The girls soccer team had their first game on Friday the 9th, winning 2-1 against Lyme Old Lyme. But the second game on Saturday the 10th, the girls lost to Bolton 1-3. And finally, the girls and boys cross-country team had their first meet on Saturday the 10th at Stratton Brook State Park in Simsbury.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Julia? All right, well, thank you very much. And since you're new, I'll just mention you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. We often like to hear your opinions if we're talking about things you might have some insight on. But other than that, I know you have homework, and if you'd like to dip out after your report, you're always welcome to do that. Okay, reports of liaisons from Town Council and Board of Finance. I do not see anyone here this evening. So superintendent's updates and responses to Board of Ed comments and action items from the prior meeting. Dr.
A wonderful opening to the new school year. It felt so normal. Convocation was wonderful. Our theme was Kassarian and Gera, and that means how are the children. I should have sent something to you, and I will send it to you, a little video to watch. And really, it talks about the Maasai in small communities in Africa who, instead of saying, hello, how are you, they greet every single day. They greet each other with Kassarian and Gera, and the response is Sapati and Gera. It means the children are well. So how are the children? and the children are well. And that's how they greet each other every single day. So we talked a little bit about that. If we were to really, as not just the Board of Education, but as a town, every committee, everything that we start with Kasarian and Guerra, and really worry and wonder on how are the children and making sure that the children are well. Because in making sure they're well, we're all well. They take care of us, and they will eventually take care of us, and that means we're taking care of them when they need it. So it was great. We had a great morning, I think. I see Tara saying yes, it was fun. Tried to do breakfast pizza, not so much, but they took a great shot at it. And it was just a really nice morning. The rest of the day we spent with doing our mandated training. There's hours of mandated training for educators, for anyone who works in schools. So I believe everything went very smoothly. It was awesome to see the kids without the masks. I saw a lot of smiles, a ton of beautiful smiles getting off ECS buses. That was where I thought I knew I would find joy wherever I was, but getting the little ones off the bus, and the kindergartners who just wanted to hug you the second they got off the bus. A cute story, we had only one crier, and she was pretty sad, and then I went around and talked to a lot of the other kids, and I went into a classroom, I want to say it was 7th grade, and I said, everyone did pretty well today. We just had one student cry in kindergarten, and this boy went, was it my sister? I said, what's your sister's name? And he told me. I said, yup. So it was pretty cute for it to go full circle. So it was a great day. Of course, we have hiccups, as you all know, with our buses. We're not the only ones. Nationwide shortage. It's even deeper here. We are fully staffed. We have a full fleet of 12 drivers. It's just we have a lot of new drivers who are really struggling with learning their routes. We also do have buses with a lot of students on them. If you remember, we cut one bus out of the budget a couple years ago. When we were trying to save money. I do not believe that it is a matter of how many students, if we need a new bus or not. It's figuring out how to reroute some of our students, which we're working on with DACO. They have been inundated. Alessandra has been amazing. Wendy Dowling, Ann Burke. We used to have a transportation coordinator. Don't worry, I'm not asking for a transportation coordinator, but I want to give a huge shout out to the people who are really helping get this together. We do have our buses at full capacity. There are 3 students to a seat. And we're looking at changing some routes up still, and it's probably going to take us a couple more weeks to get that settled and worked out. And the buses will start to thin as activities start and sports and athletics, and we really get on our way with that. We start to see that happen. But otherwise, it was wonderful. I think that, the COVID numbers, because we're not going to have a special presentation on that anymore. Tomorrow you'll get a letter from me. We wanted to see how it was going to work out. We have a dashboard, and it's called it's the COVID dashboard on our website. And it's feel free. Everyone can go to it every day. Every single day it's updated with current COVID cases. And when we say current, it's who's positive within that 10-day window is what we're still considering. We still have to report to the State Department of Education every day. And currently we have at ECS, we have 12 students positive, staff 10, WIS 13 students, 3 staff, CMS 4 students, 2 staff, CHS 2 students, 0 staff, and central office 0 staff. So we have 15 staff that are positive and 31 students right now, which really is not all that bad. A few people were nervous that we were having an outbreak and not letting parents know. We are going to start treating this like the flu and everything else. If we get to the 20% in a classroom where we can actually follow a cohort, because everything's back to normal, which is beautiful. The kids are mixed. They're having lunch together. This is what they need. We all know that. We don't want them to get COVID, but it's really hard to track where at this point because we're not cohorting. But if we do see an uptick in a specific classroom or a specific grade level that exceeds that 20 hits the 20%, we'll let families know. We're not sending individualized letters anymore. We're leaving it up to the families to go onto the website and look at the dashboard themselves. And if they're very curious about and worried because they may see a little bit of a higher number at a certain grade level, they're more than welcome to call the school nurse and have a conversation, and everything is covered under FERPA and HIPAA anyway, so we can't disclose those names. So that is it for how we are going. We're starting off the year better than we thought. We'll see what happens. Anything else? I think that was it. Unless anyone has any questions for me, it's just feels like it's year number 1 in teaching again, or I'm not a teacher, superintendent. For me, it felt like that excitement of year number 1 again. And the administrators will give you an opening about their opening as well. So that's all that I have to report.
And did you want to do that? At what point did you want to do that on the agenda?
It's actually on new business, principal updates.
Oh, as part of the principal reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And I just wanted to mention that I did attend convocation on our behalf, and it, like Dr. Macri said, it was amazing. I hadn't been in obviously a couple of years. It was virtual, and prior to that, I've just never experienced one that was so positive and uplifting, and like students were there singing and everything. It was just really amazing, and what a perfect message to start the school year out. And then we had our teacher of the year. I had to go to my job, but I did hear rave reviews about your presentation, Ms. Pavlick, so it went very well. Okay, next we have presentations and reports of administration. Item A, 2021-2022 final budget update, reference A. Ms. Burke, do you want to come up and explain? You have it in your packets.
Good evening. So I've included in your packet just a brief memo summarizing last year, 21-22. So this is our final budget status report. We ended the year with a little over $1,700 in surplus, which is great. I think, it was a really tough year. We had a lot of challenges, and I think Dr. Macri and I were particularly happy that we were able to get to that point during the year. For anyone that's new on the board, years that we have a surplus, we will ask the Board of Finance at the future Board of Finance meeting if they will allow us to put the surplus money into our capital non-recurring account, which helps us with some capital projects or technology purchases. It's not a lot of money, but every little bit helps. Otherwise, the money would go directly back into the town general fund, and it would not be available for us to use. And they've always been very generous and allowed us to use. This year, I'm sure it will help us out just a little bit with the culinary kitchen at the high school, or anything else that we might need. So that's also an item on the agenda that does require the Board of Education approval for me to go to the Board of Finance and ask for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you might have any.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
I think I do.
Catherine?
Sorry. I think you've gone through this before, but I'm sorry, I don't remember. When we want to access that fund, the capital non-recurring expenditure,
yes.
we do need permission from the town of Cromwell, correct? From the Board of Finance?
We need to, in our Board of Education meeting, the board needs to agree on the project, the use of the money. And we don't need to go back to the Board of Finance again. It's just the initial quote-unquote deposit into that account that requires the Board of Finance approval.
And how often have we used that account in the last few, I don't recall using it in the last few years. Have we actually?
We used it for a rooftop unit
that's right.
at CHS, and we've used it for some air conditioning projects at the CMS. I think those are the two main things that I can remember in the last few years. Yes,
Talk about,
the culinary kitchen as well.
so remember, we transferred some money back for the rooftop, and then we
Put it into the
yeah,
culinary.
into
I
the
remember that was all through the capital.
yeah, that was all through.
Yes.
So do we have a place where we're going to talk about the bad news, or should we talk about it now?
Did we get to that in facilities?
I don't know if you did you? Okay.
Maybe in that
So you
update?
could do in the update,
Okay.
yeah. All right, I was outside, so I
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to, well, we need to approve the transfer. So is there a motion to approve? Well, do I need
Motion
read
to
the whole
approve
thing?
the transfer.
Approval from the Board of Finance for the transfer of unexpended funds into the Board of Education's capital account fund. So I heard Catherine, second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you.
Old business, we have none. Under new business, we have ESS presentation, and I'm forgetting what the acronym stands for.
And we will have Sari O'Leary come up and introduce our guest speaker. We have been talking as a board about ways that we can really support our students' mental health needs right within the school, and how to perhaps make sure we're not outplacing students, and then how we can bring as many back as possible so that they can be successful in the classroom. So thank you very much. Go ahead.
All right.
Sari.
I was surprised. We didn't want to keep Jared too long. He drove 3 hours to get here. He really loves Cromwell. So, but this is Jared Delancey, and he's from Effective School Solutions, ESS. And we did speak, I think, at our last board meeting briefly about it. I don't have all the information, but I definitely know that Jared will be able to answer any questions. So he has a brief PowerPoint for you, and I'm sure there's going to be time for some question and answer at the end. So welcome.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Sarah. Thanks a lot. And thank you, members of the Board of Ed. It's good to be here. Dr. Macri, good to see you. Thank you for having me. Is that working?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's see if this is working as well. Technology. But I think, okay, great. As Sari said, I'd like to give you an introduction to what ESS is all about. There's a lot to it when we're talking about how are the children, how the children are. We take it very seriously at ESS, at Effective School Solutions. What we're doing is bringing mental health programs full-time to public schools. We've been doing it for 13 years. We're on our 14th year. And I just want to give you a feel of what that actually means. What does that look like? We're 14 years in, and it still feels new to marry the mental health world, the psychiatric world, and the school world, two worlds that were not combined historically. But school districts have more and more been asked to provide that level of care for students who increasingly have that level of need. So ESS is responding to that challenge and has been doing so for over a decade. We're also in Middletown and in Regional School District 17, which is what, Haddam and Killingworth. We're right next door in Berlin in Hartford County. We're in over 100 districts in all across 10 states, all the way out to California. I'll just jump in and give you some more of that background. Our mission is to provide comprehensive, cost-effective clinical programs, and I can't emphasize that word enough, clinical, because it's beyond the scope of what your excellent child study team, school social workers, counselors can provide, not because they may not have those credentials. In fact, maybe there are several members of your staff who have private practices on their own. But as we all know, the parameters of school social work don't allow school personnel to do full-on clinical work, what you would think of as psychotherapy, sending someone out for a higher level of care to a private practitioner. That's the goal here, is to bring that level of support into the building. So that's what we're providing, and we're doing that for students whether or not they're classified, K through 12. From our point of view, it's whoever you think can benefit from this program. We will assess those students for support. Again, this is our 14th year. We started in 2 districts in New Jersey, Boonton and Cherry Hill, for anyone who's familiar with the New Jersey landscape, 2 very different districts. And we're really proud of the fact, I always bring that up because we're very proud of the fact we're still with them 13, 14 years later, which means not only have we been doing a good job, but we've had to change and tailor this program from year to year for their specific needs. Started with in particular looking at, as Dr. Macri mentioned, out-of-district placements or students who were on the verge of going out. And ESS was born out of a private therapeutic school. The founders of this school, which is still a thriving school in New Jersey, recognized that there were students who were there who, with the right supports, would never have had to have been uprooted from their least restrictive environment, their home district, and sent to an out-of-district placement. And there were still other students who, yes, needed to be removed for a while, but were then stabilized and had nothing to step back down to in their home district. And no incentive. Families who were saying, well, things didn't go too well when our child was there, why would we send her or him back to that district? So the idea of the founders of ESS, who also founded that school, was let's see if we can do this in the building. And so prevent that uprooting that can be so traumatic for students, and then bring students back who are able to come back. And I bring that up with respect to those first two districts because we started with both of them looking at their out-of-district placements. Best scenario for the students, LRE, least restrictive environment, but also the financial impact of tuition and transportation if a student can be provided that least restrictive environment education and a district can avoid those costs, that's a win-win. And if you think of the families involved, not just the student, a win-win-win all the way around. So that's what we've done with our two districts. Now we're in about 110 districts, again, all the way out to California, and we're growing. And the reason for that is clear. There's a need, a growing need. It started well before the pandemic, but the pandemic, hopefully on its way out for good, has totally exacerbated that. So we're seeing more and more students with more and more severe challenges, and more students just popping up on the radar. And I'm going to speak to that with our different levels of support. So that's a bit of our history as well. I mentioned the challenges we were facing, all of us across the country, before the pandemic, and how the pandemic levels of anxiety, we've taken to calling it ambient trauma and ambient anxiety, because it's in the air for all of us, which is kind of an unfortunate pun that it's in the air for all of us, but it is. And so we've looked to tailor our programs to address specific challenges that this pandemic has presented us with. And what that looks like now that students, again, knock wood, are going to be in school all the time, full time. We, for example, developed a set of best practices for virtual mental health service delivery if there are further school closures. So all of our partners know we're ready to pivot to that if we need to, even though we're all hoping there will be no more. So we're ready for all of that, and that's been one of the ways in which we've stayed on top of the challenges as they've grown and changed. So this is how we conceive of, at ESS, our multi-tiered system of support for mental health. It probably looks quite familiar to you because we intentionally modeled this after an academic RTI, or intervention and referral services, for students. We want this to fit seamlessly into what you conceive of as your continuum of educational care for your students. So we've got students at Tier 3, highest level of need. These are students who are really struggling and who may well be candidates for an out-of-district placement. They don't have to be that severe, but we're often working with students with that level of need at Tier 3. That program, if you're familiar with the clinical landscape, it looks like a partial hospitalization program embedded in the school. And what I mean specifically by that is the amount of supports that are both built in and the crisis response that we provide. So we're doing group every morning. This is our goal. We will tailor it to the schedules of the students, but we like to see our kids every morning for group. We want them stabilized and set up for a successful day. We like to see our kids at lunchtime, because that unstructured time tends to be a real challenge for them, whether they're fragile or they're acting out. And then we like to see students at the end of the day, some form of check-in and check-out. Clearly it will look quite different for a first grader than it would for a senior in high school. And Sarah and I have been talking a lot about the high school, but we're open to supporting whoever needs support. But that's the basic idea, and that's before you even get to individual therapy every week, family therapy every other week. We come in the evenings to work with families who can't or sometimes won't come during the day. And we have a multifamily support group every month for families. From the family's point of view, they're getting all of these services for free because ESS partners with the district. No one's asking them to pay out of pocket or go through their insurance plan, find a provider in the community, which is typically how it goes, and that can be a real challenge for everyone involved. The school district has gone to lengths, and we see the appreciation for that in the participation rates to bring ESS in to provide these services for these families. And so we find them being really engaged. If that's not the case, that's the difference too between a school district doing this on their own and ESS doing it. Is that's why we're there for families who are busy, who have so much going on, and who need some extra help navigating and implementing some of the changes a therapist might give. We're there to be talking to families over the phone, to be arranging family therapy, to be arranging multifamily therapy and support. So that's what we're there to do, which can take so much time otherwise. So that's tier 3. A lot more to it, but that's the idea. Structured support combined with responding in real time if there are urgent needs, which is another huge piece of what we do, because that's what's taking up so much time for your teams. When a student is having a crisis, who responds? What is it that a school team can do and can't do? As licensed mental health professionals, we can assess whether a student is a danger to himself or herself or others. Does this student need a psychiatric clearance, a formal clearance? We're doing all the case management if that's necessary. At tier 3, it's not unusual for that to be necessary. I know that can be a scary situation, and not only for the school teams, but for other students, their friends, etc. So we're there as their therapists to do this, always in full communication with school leadership and district leadership and following crisis protocols of the district. So that's really tier 3 in a nutshell. Tier 2 is more for mild to moderate needs. And this grew organically. When we started those 13 years ago, the focus was tier 3. That's where the need was. And so that's what we were addressing. But a lot of our districts, not just the first 2 in New Jersey, Boonton and Cherry Hill, were saying, okay, you've helped us with that. We've got students with mild to moderate needs. They're not at tier 3 just yet. We don't want them to get to tier 3. What can you do to help us? So we created these tier 2 programs. And it provides a scaled down version of tier 3. More focused on individual support, still staying in touch with the families, still responding in real time, but more flexibility built in, more students at once. So the cohort is larger for tier 2, and they tend to be with us for a shorter period of time. 6 to 8 weeks is the general time with us. If they need more, they'll get more, but we're keeping an eye on them as to, is this working? Do they need a higher level of care? Are they ready to step down? Who can we bring into the queue? So that's a huge part of what we're doing at tier 2. Same idea as tier 3, but pared down. Now, tier 1. I used to be a teacher. I have a license in clinical social work. I had a private practice working with students, but my inspiration to do that was really born out of my educational experience as a middle school teacher. I taught in the South Bronx. And it was truly demoralizing to feel like I had all these students, depending on what point in the year you caught me, 34, 35 students, who I knew needed help, and I didn't know the first thing about how to provide that help. So I was so pleased when I first interviewed with ESS that whether you do a tier 3 or a tier 2 program or both, which more and more of our partners are doing, we always complement that with tier 1 support for all the teachers in the district. So let's say we're just in the high school here at Cromwell. We don't want to just do professional development for teachers in the high school. We want to do it for the whole district. We want to work that into your PD plan, because we really recognize that this is part of the comprehensive approach to supporting all of your students through their educators. So we've got a library of about 50 topics. It grows every year. We talk to our partners about what they need most. Trauma-attuned classrooms. Unfortunately, a very popular topic every year. Suicide awareness and prevention. Self-care for teachers. That's become more popular than ever. Teachers, administrators, the whole team. You choose, and we deliver those topics throughout the year, and we have a separate professional development team to do that. Our clinicians aren't providing that PD. We have professional presenters who come and do that. Now, we also offer a deeper dive So that's standard. That comes with any clinical program. But again, organically, a lot of our districts have asked us to focus more on, take a deeper dive into trauma, because that's really the operative word of late. I would argue that this was traumatizing for all of us these past 2 years and change. So our partners have been asking us, can we go take a deeper dive into helping teachers understand how trauma impacts learning, how it impacts behavior, and then give them more tools in the toolbox to work with students in the classroom who have been impacted by trauma one way or another. So we offer that as well for a smaller group of teacher leaders, coaching. Deeper dive into the content, and then side-by-side coaching with our professional development team around creating non-reactive environments, trauma-attuned classrooms. And then those teachers can be mentors for other teachers going forward. So PD is all that is to say, a long-winded way of saying professional development is really important to what we're doing. And then, of course, the foundational piece is all the strategizing around what the specific needs of the district are and how we can address them, how we can tailor an ESS program to meet those needs, which is what Sarah and I have been working on. Okay, the team. It's also something I really wanted to impart this evening, is that this is not a model where we're just dropping off some clinicians and leaving them to their own devices. This is a team effort. First and foremost, our clinicians are always licensed, typically LCSWs like myself, but licensed is the operative word, licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed providers. And we're looking for clinicians who've been out of graduate school and who've been working with students with a high level of need in psychiatric settings outside of the school world. So partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, residential treatment, which was my training and one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I learned so much from that. So that's who we're looking to recruit. We're also providing them with additional training because we have protocols around everything that we do. How do you work with students who are school avoidant? How do you work with students who are acting out, etc.? We want our clinicians to learn those protocols, data-backed, proven protocols, and I'll talk to you about how the data we provide you with before they start in your district. Then we have a team effort, a supervisory structure where we have what we call a regional clinical director who oversees those clinicians not only programmatically but clinically. And I want to emphasize that too. Even if a clinician has the level of licensure where they no longer are required to be clinically supervised, meaning you have to have someone more senior if you're working with say students or you have clients in practice, we mandate it as an organization ongoing, so that the district is reassured that, again, this is a team approach and there are multiple sets of clinical eyes on these students and their families and the work that we're doing. Very important. That region will facilitate meetings, be the main liaison between school leadership, district leadership, and ESS leadership, etc. The final person, and I used a 4-person team because that's kind of standard per school. We like to have 2 clinicians if we're responding to crises and one of the clinician goes and the other clinician can stay with the students who are in the program currently in a group setting or what have you. We like to do that. Many of our districts have more than that, but working with this standard model, the 4th person on the team is remote. That's a quality and risk management specialist, and that speaks to this data piece. One part of what that clinician does is collect data just for our students, so we're hooked into your student information system, Power School or whatever it is that you have. We're taking baseline measure for grades, discipline, attendance, and then we're measuring progress. Objective data, what's the impact of this program on these students? How has their performance improved overall? We're also getting qualitative data, feedback from families, and I'll show you a slide about that as well. We want to know how this is going from all perspectives, especially yours. So that quality and risk management specialist is going to aggregate all that data and present it to the district quarterly, or give it to our team to present. So we're typically presenting that to the Board of Education, to Dr. Macri, to the superintendent. Really comes in handy in terms of assessing the impact of the program. You're going to get lots of qualitative feedback, but let's give you some hard data as well. So that 4th person on the team does that, and he or she will also review the clinical record. If this is a truly clinical program, then we need to have a truly clinical record, an electronic health record with all of the interventions logged. So there is a formal record of all the efforts ESS, the district via ESS, has done to support this student. This is another licensed mental health professional, so she or he can say, can we get more creative with the approach here? Have you noticed that the attendance has started to sink again? More absences, even though it was improved a while back. Also, on the flip side, scrutinizing the work of our clinicians. This is our own internal system for scrutinizing their work, in addition to the regional clinical director being their boss, so to speak. We also have this quality and risk management specialist reviewing the chart. Are they following our protocols? Taking all the steps they learned in training, ESS school, as we call it. All right, so that's the team, and that's what the team looks like. Just a few more slides, because I want to make sure I'm answering questions, but that's the basic idea for what the team looks like. So you've got the full-time clinicians, the regional supporting them, usually in district in person about once a week, to run the meetings that I'll talk about, to provide that clinical supervision, et cetera. And then the fourth person on the team, remote. This is an example, just a visual of that deeper dive, that more robust version of professional development with the coaching that I talked about. Not much more to talk about here, although there are many details. The basic idea is focusing on trauma, select group of teachers. We call them the Champions Committee. You can call them whatever you like, but if you think that's corny, but we call them the Champions Committee. And they will be the teacher leaders who will take that information and share it going forward. So, built-in communication, this is the final piece. We want to make sure that we are collaborating with your team, with building leadership, with district leadership, with school social workers, with guidance counselors, et cetera, school principals for sure. We don't want to be a satellite program working in some corner of the building on our own, and we can't talk about the students and what we're doing. That's what you brought us in for. No, that's not our approach. Not only are we looking to be, and we're training our clinicians to be accessible and communicative in general, but we also want to do that formally with built-in meetings. So the first thing that we're going to do, you can think of it as medical rounds. We call it administrative meetings. Every week, our regional clinical director will facilitate a meeting with our clinicians and the key players in that building, wherever we are, who know the students best, who need to hear about how the students are doing, whether it's someone from guidance, someone from special education. We like to have a building level administrator in the building. It'd be great if the principal was there, but can be someone else who can make a decision if we need to on the spot if a student's really having a challenge. And we sit around and discuss the students, not only clinically, but academically. So we're all on the same page. And part of that discussion is, how are the students doing? Are they ready to step down? And who else can we bring in? Who's in the queue? Because that's an important thing to start to think about too. This is not just the original students in the program. We want to bring other students in. Tier 3, that level of need, students may be with us for a while. Not unusual at all, speaking candidly, that they're with us all year, even beyond. But we're always looking least restrictive environment. Step down, bring somebody else in. And Tier 2, for sure, 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, this student has done great. Let's start to taper her off from this program. And who else do you have for us? Who else do you want to bring in? So we're doing that in the administrative meeting. We really learn to bond in that meeting and become one team. Your team is seeing how our clinicians are committed, professional, their level of expertise, et cetera. And that works for that relationship. We want you to think of them as district clinicians, not as ESS. That's our goal. We want to meet with principals. We're aware of how busy everybody's schedule is. So I want to make sure I emphasize that for the weekly meeting, we're gonna do that as painlessly as possible. Piggyback on another meeting that's already happening, et cetera. Do it very efficiently. Maybe for the students who it's most relevant for, or those guidance counselors, et cetera, for whom the student is most relevant for, we'll plan that. Which student are we talking about from 10 to 10:15, et cetera. So we'll make it convenient for you and as seamless as possible. Same thing with the principals meeting. We usually, principals are busy folks. We usually say, can you give us 20 minutes, a half hour a month? If you want to meet more than that, great, but at least give us a half hour, 20 minutes a month where the regional clinical director sits with you alone, no clinicians in that meeting. Of course, the director is always invited. But how are the clinicians doing? This is the bird's eye view meeting. Are they making themselves accessible? Are they fitting in? We have it written into your contract, very unique in the in-school mental health world. If you're not happy with our clinicians, we'll replace those clinicians. And we're confident in doing that because of the vetting process that we go through in the training process and presenting you with these clinicians. But that's in the contract. So we're asking, how are they doing? How are we doing? Is there something you think we need to tweak?
Can I just end that? and having incredible clinicians in my previous district to having one that we were not happy with. We tried. We did the best we could. We worked together, and within a week, there was a replacement for the clinician. So I can attest to, if it's not working for our kids, that ECS is very committed to making sure that it's working for our kids. And everything that Jared is saying, it's not just talk. I've seen the walk as well.
Thanks, Dr. Macri. Yeah, we take all of this extremely seriously, but the rubber meets the road with the clinicians. They've got to be excellent for this to work. And so we're on top of that fully and in communication with you about that all the time. Superintendents very often like to meet when the report card comes out, the data, but we'll meet whenever. You know that, Dr. Macri, but it's a good time to look at it when the numbers come out. Board of Education, our teams are often asked to present that report card to the board and talk about how the program's going, update the board on how this program is going, et cetera. So we're happy to do that. So meetings are key. And in addition to communicating outside of those meetings, we want to make sure this is a communicative, collaborative effort. Just a quick sample of data. This was aggregate data from our last full in-person school year, which seems like ages ago, 2019, 2020. But we were working with about 2,000 students at that point. And these were some of the key measures. We're proud of all these numbers, but of course that 99% was really something that we didn't have. 99% of the time we were successful in maintaining students at Tier 3 in district. They didn't need an out-of-district placement. We're truly proud of that, and as the numbers grow, we're working with more and more students at the Tier 3 level. That becomes harder and harder to do. But our students were better behaved, so to speak. They were in the class more often, and their grades improved consistently across the board. So in addition to this, a report card will have, well, how many urgent interventions did you do? How much time did that save our team? How many group sessions did you do? How many multifamily support sessions were done in this quarter? What is the qualitative feedback from families? We ask families, do you feel like your privacy is being respected? Or are clinicians, accessible to you? Do you feel like this is working for your student, et cetera? So we get that feedback as well. And you see some of the responses here, which I haven't memorized, and the text is a little too small for me, but you get the idea. Families are quite happy with the level of support they're getting, all the reasons I mentioned before from their point of view why this would be really terrific for them. And when we have families who feel like they need more or their needs aren't being met, we get that data. I mean, we're asking them all the time, but sometimes it's easier to just respond with the data. Then we're looking to address those concerns. This is not easy work. We don't pretend that it is. We don't pretend that there won't be bumps in the road. But we've really learned how to be proactive about that and responsive instead of reactive when we face those challenges. Okay, I think that's it. I had a final slide that was just a thank you slide, which I can say thank you for your time and for your attention, and I'd love to answer some questions if there are any.
Thank you so much for that very thorough presentation. That's a lot to take in. I'll open it up to questions. Who wants to start? Dipsy.
Yes.
This program will start at the high school here.
Well, we haven't decided yet, and this is part of the process of seeing how you feel about it. But we have talked about some challenges at the high school.
And do the clinicians meet, do they go to team meetings in other districts? Do they go to PPTs? Is that part of the whole process?
Sure do. We want to be a part of those meetings. We really want to be a part of the fabric of the school community. That's how I typically put it. Extracurricular events, graduation. We want to be involved with it becomes a real family, students that we're working with.
Other questions, Matt?
Why does everyone get that smile on their face when I raise my hand?
There will be a few.
Sorry, this is kind of my wheelhouse.
Let's do it.
What kind of space will be required inside the school for your folks?
As you can imagine, we've had to get pretty creative about space because space is at a premium typically. It's a joy when I hear a director say, nah, space is not an issue, and we got it.
You must hear that almost never.
Almost never. So for a standard Tier 3 model, where we've got these four-person team, but the two clinicians are there full-time, we need a space just big enough to do group therapy with half the cohort. So let me also say, a Tier 3 cohort, that's important. Each clinician up to 10 students. So when we have a Tier 3 standard model of 2 clinicians, it's up to 20 students. So think of a space big enough to do group therapy with, say, 8 kids and the lead clinician. And that would be the lead clinician's office. One of the clinicians takes a leadership role, but they both carry the caseload. And then a space just big enough to do an individual session. And this is also literal and humorous. We've moved into coat closets. We have moved into storage spaces and copy rooms. We make it work. And for that bigger space in particular, we bring the leather sofas, we bring the carpeting, we bring the paintings and plants, soft lighting, make this a therapeutic space. So that's Tier 3. Tier 2 is just that smaller space, because that's focused on individual.
Okay, and you said you bring all the furniture you need and all that stuff.
We do.
Wow, that's fantastic.
We offered to paint one year, but that was a union issue, so we couldn't do it.
I would imagine it would be.
Yeah.
So you already kind of answered, you do work, it looks like you work pretty much in concert with school personnel. So we're looking at a district, we have a number of outplacements for this reason, right? And my experience personally as an educator has been that when students are outplaced, they do get help they need, but then they're not well acclimated to come back to the space they came from. They tend to kind of become assimilated into their new space, and now they belong there. So trying to help them come back into their home environment is a challenge, because they've gained skills that help them in all environments, but most specifically in the environment they've been outplaced to. So my question around that is, what is your role, ESS's role, in working with families of students who are currently outplaced in an effort to encourage them to come back into the home environment?
Thanks for that question. Central. Our role is central. So that would start with conversations with Sari and with your team around who are you thinking about bringing back. We want to speak very frankly in those discussions. Okay, what was the presenting problem or challenge? How long have they been out? Any recent crises that you can imagine? Won't go down the list. So looking at all of that, we're also wondering, how does the family feel and the student feel about coming back? Sometimes, which is fantastic, couldn't be more excited about the chance to come back. That's not always the case. And one of the things that they bring up when it's not the case is what you just mentioned, and it's Mr. Zabrowski, what you just mentioned, Mr. Zabrowski, and that is, well, why would we go back? Especially if things are stabilized. And so we're really concerned about that, and who's going to support our student when there are crises that will inevitably come. So part of what we do there is meet with the family and put that face to the name Effective School Solutions, do a version of what I just did, and make them comfortable with the idea that we're not just bringing your child back into empty space, coming back to a very different situation than he or she left. With all of this support, sometimes there's a transition plan. Even when the student has been out, school avoidance. We see severe cases of school avoidance. It's like they've been placed out, haven't been in the building forever. We need a transition plan with that too. They might spend the first few days back in the district with us in the ESS space, period. We'll work that out with the team, what's best. Then maybe half days. Then maybe they can check in with us between classes. So all of that is a specific, intentional plan around making this work.
Okay. This might be more of a question for Sari, but I'll make that my last question. I have 12 more. I'm kidding.
I'm ready.
The 4-person team is per school?
The regional clinical director and the quality and risk management specialists are district-wide.
Okay.
The clinicians are per school. So the clinicians at Tier 3, they need to be in that building all day, every day, because of the crises that come up in particular. At Tier 2, we're a little more flexible with clinicians moving between 2 buildings. So we're open to that. But the regional and so it would be, if they're moving between 2 buildings at Tier 2, those are their buildings. that we wouldn't all of a sudden send them to a third or a fourth building.
So all right. So your two clinicians, let's say their home school would be here,
Yep.
right, Cromwell High School, and maybe if we included the middle school, there'd be two clinicians at the middle school, and then there might be two floaters who could go between schools as needed.
Those would be tier 2.
Only for tier 2.
Only for tier 2. Got to be
Sorry,
in
I
the
meant to
building.
include that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Got to be in the building for tier 3. Same building all day, every day.
Okay, and you said one for tier 3, one clinician for every 10 students?
Yes. So each clinician will carry a caseload of 10 at tier 3 and up to 15 at tier 2.
Okay, that I missed that part.
Yeah, we usually, and I may not have said it, Mr. Zambrowski. So at tier 2, we usually say 12 to 15 because sometimes there are 12 tier 2 students
Who are like high tier 2.
10 of whom, right, are close to tier 3. So we would just ongoing conversations about what that will look like. But the ceiling would be 15.
Okay. So tier 2 is 15. And I only have 2 more, and I apologize.
Sure.
For lots of questions here.
That's
but
what I'm here for.
I want to know this stuff. So, and I hate to ask this question, but I have to ask this question. Has ESS ever had districts discontinue their services?
Yes,
And
it's an
if
important
they
question.
If they have, can you share why?
Yes, overwhelmingly new leadership. And it's because, let's be frank, we're the low-hanging fruit on the budget.
Yep.
There's a price tag to this, and if they were not the leaders who brought it in, then they're going to look at it when they come in. And so we've got to win them over all over again. And we do that. I mean, our year-to-year continuation rate, renewal is the word I'm looking for, rate, is well up into the 90s. And we're really proud of that, too. But yes, that has happened, and that is I've been with ESS 7 years, and I've not been in a situation where I've heard the district say, just doesn't work. They're not doing it. It's usually new leadership has
it's
come
a
in,
budgetary
yep,
issue.
and they say, listen, let's cut this program.
So do you, well, and you may not know the answer, and if you don't, that's perfectly fine, but do you find that your services are more cost-effective than outplacements in general?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I feel very confident about saying yes to that.
And my last question, and Sarah, this might be one more for you. I know in the past that certain services have qualified for at least partial reimbursement from Medicare, Medicaid. Would this fall under that realm?
It does, Medicaid. And we always ask that in the lead up. Do you think you'll have students in the program whose families receive Medicaid so you can get that reimbursement?
And so parents just sign the form saying that they're okay with you pursuing Medicaid. It doesn't cost the family anything.
Yeah, I don't even
all
know
that.
if the parents consent to being part of the program for sure.
Yep.
That comes up front, but I don't know if the Medicaid piece.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
if the district has to get their signature,
I
then
feel like
we
the
do.
district
Yes.
does have to get their
yes,
signature.
that makes sense.
Okay, that's it. I really appreciate answering all of my questions, and I would apologize for all of them, but
Not at all.
To know.
This is really important, and I'm sure other people had those questions, at least some of them, in mind, and not the only opportunity. So through Sari, if you have other questions, want to send me emails or whatever, anybody has questions, please let me know. But maybe there are some others?
Thank
I
you
have a
so much.
question.
Okay.
I know prior to this meeting, the plan was you were going to come into the high school and kind of do an assessment as to whether we were a good fit for the program, assuming that already happened. And what were your thoughts?
No, it's
No,
actually
okay.
that.
Sorry, I
hasn't-
have it backwards.
Yeah, we feel we're ready.
That's the next step.
The idea is, do you want ESS? We would be looking at which students you had in mind. Before there's any partnership and formal contract, that's all anonymous. So, let me be more specific. What comes up often for Tier 2 is we want to be really clear, and I know we're mostly talking about Tier 3 here, but just to give you an example. We want to be very clear about the student's acuity level being matched with the appropriate tier level. A Tier 3 student in a Tier 2 program is not going to get the support that student needs. So what we will often do, if you're thinking of a Tier 2, for example, is do an anonymous student review. No names. How are these students who you're thinking about for Tier 2 presenting? I bring in someone from clinical leadership, from my team, and we do that meeting. And then we can say, yep, sounds like Tier 2. Let's go forward with that. Or, this student, the way he or she is presenting, we really think that's probably more Tier 3, so that we're on the same page when we go forward. But that's just tailoring, and I'm sorry, I can't see your name either.
Oh, Kelleher, yes.
Ms. Keller?
Kelleher.
Keller.
Yep.
Kelleher. I appreciate your question. That's just for tailoring. We already believe, we're ready to support.
And if I could just piggyback, he didn't essentially come in and review. It was a lot of conversation this summer, meeting with other admin, at the high school, in terms of our need. How many outplacements do we have? What are we thinking? How many kids do we think we can bring back? All of that was discussed and has been, ongoing. So that's really how we determined, yes, it would be a good fit. So just wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to make it very clear, remember, all of you asked us to look into this. I don't want anyone saying I'm bringing in a contractor from outside that I've worked with, which is true. I have, and I've always been transparent about it. And I think they do it very well. So, but with that being said, we review so much data with the clinicians, and I'm sure Jared will be involved up front. When we look at our district data, to be quite frank, the first place to start when you look at Cromwell, and it's not always like this, but we need it at the high school. I think we need it everywhere. We can't afford it everywhere, but if you start with one school, and then we look, there's many different options, and we can change things around so that it could look a little different. However, you have to do this program with fidelity. We can't, and I'm saying this, I don't need Jared to say it. I'm saying it from my own experience. I can't now say I have 4 kids down at elementary and we're going to split the clinician to be here 3 hours a day and 4, because we don't know when those moments are going to happen, those crises, when that's going to happen. That process has to be very fluid. And in response to some of the questions, when you look at the kids, and I know Jared will tell you, like the kids who are very, very highly unsafe in school to themselves and to others, we want them to get the best help that they can get. So we are making sure that the students that are accessing this program are going to be at a vantage point to help them succeed, so that we can get them in and out as quickly as possible. There's going to be kids who are in and out in 6-8 weeks. There's going to be kids who are in this program for 4 years. It just happens, and it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If that's what the students need, they need it. And I could attest to where I would want to, when I look at the data, is to start at the high school. That doesn't mean we don't need the help at the middle school. We need help at the middle school. We need help at the lower levels. But just looking at what we're dealing with school avoidance, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, not fitting in, not going to class, that's where I would start. That's my recommendation. I think Sari has the same recommendation, but that's where I'm thinking. And I don't know if Sari, you want to add anything?
Can I ask who determines outplacement when there is a student that, someone needs?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if it would be ESS or student services, or would you work together?
Yeah, I'm
on
really
the
glad you're asking that, and it's part of what I wanted to complement what Dr. Macri was saying as well. The discussions are always collaborative, and if, like Dr. Macri was saying, sometimes a student's not with us all year, and it's a relatively shorter amount of time, though I will say that's, at Tier 3, they tend to need a significant amount of time, but might not be the whole year. That's a group effort. Those administrative meetings that I talked about, we're all on the same page talking about, okay, we think the student is ready to step down, here's why, what are your thoughts, and it's the same thing with an out-of-district placement. What's great about having licensed mental health professionals in the building is you don't have to go out to get that assessment, which may or may not even happen. To hear from a licensed clinician's point of view, does this student really need to be removed from this environment for some time? The other advantage to that is, again, very often, as you all well know, if a student goes out, they typically don't come back, at least not right away. So it's a very significant thing when an out-of-district placement is conscientiously, deliberately, intentionally, and collaboratively prevented. in that way. But that's all to say, yes, it's a collaborative discussion.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And are you able to, I know it's very premature, but give us some sense for cost? I mean, obviously, if you're retaining students, you're saving on outplacement, but your service obviously has a price too. So just generally, can you give us any kind of reference point?
Sure, if Dr. Macri and Sarah would like me to go into that. If you sign by midnight tonight, I'm kidding, I couldn't resist. That's an old joke. So in a standard model, with that 4-person team and the professional development throughout the year, we also have an extended school year that's included. That's $325,000 for that team. We do, and I talked to Sarah about this, there are some circumstances where we'd have a single clinician, and we'd have to look very closely at whether that would move the needle, so to speak, be impactful enough, and that's $170,000. So as districts go up, so it's not 170 to 340, it's to 325, and then we're in some larger districts where, I mean, we started in Newark, New Jersey with, I think, 12 clinicians. So obviously the rate of increase was reduced tremendously for that. But that's the starting point, it's 325.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we usually talk about, that's usually, about 3 students
Right.
between tuition and transportation to cover the cost of that. And I just wanted to say also on the heels of the question about Medicaid reimbursement is our districts prior to ESSER were using IDEA funds, title funds. They were looking at out-of-district placements for sure, and many of them were either offsetting partially or fully the cost of ESS in that first year. Some of them were creating surpluses, so that they didn't even, in those instances, many of those districts didn't even write us into the budget in that first year. It was after we proved ourselves that first year and managed the budget that way, then we were implemented. And I like that approach. ESSER has changed everything. So I would say 90% of our new partners for next year are using ESSER for 1, 2, even 3 years out, and saying, okay, ESS, you prove yourself over that time, and then we'll talk about year 2 or year 3 or year 4. And that's come in really handy.
And I told you, there's always an option, right? And I always believed in ESS. I believe in keeping our kids in district if this is where they belong. I also believe in order to do that, we have to make sure that the correct services are in place for our teachers. We have to keep everyone safe, other students, our teachers, our staff. And I explained to you that it was going to be costly. It wasn't that I wasn't looking at this, but I knew it was going to be costly. I'm not saying that it's not worth the cost. I'm saying it was going to be. You either do it and you do it right, or you don't do it at all. And I will stick by that because I've seen it not done well, and it could be incredibly detrimental to the culture and climate and safety of the staff and the students. So when we talk about the full package, that's what we want. We want the full package because we want it to be successful. And I stand by that. I stood by that when I first started working with ESS, and I stand by it today. We want everyone to be successful.
One more quick question.
Sure.
I know you said health insurance isn't required for the student, but sometimes I've heard that when you go seeking services personally, privately, that if you're already receiving services through the school, you're not able to do both. Does that come into play at all?
It does come into play doing both, but on the opposite end, meaning we encourage it. A lot of our students, especially at Tier 3, as you can imagine, are already seeing therapists and maybe psychiatrists as well. Medication management, which we take part in, et cetera, are involved in those discussions. So we work with them, then we're able to communicate with that therapist so that we're on the same page. I've never heard of a situation where they couldn't get further outside support because they were working with ESS. Sometimes you'll find a clinician.
I do you're thinking, just because of course I had experience with it. We don't have school-based health centers, so CHC, I don't know if it's happening or wasn't happening. That was an issue. School-based health centers were refusing to provide our students with clinicians and care, psychiatric help, in my previous district because we were using ESS. We did fix that very quickly, But that was the only situation. Any other outside provider wants to work with anyone that is working with the schools. That was, we don't have school-based health centers.
Usually it's considered, in my experience, a real advantage.
Yeah.
The outside provider, I mean, when I had a practice and was working with students, I wished there was someone in the school I could communicate. Whenever that did happen, circumstantially, it was great, because then that communication was ongoing and we could team up.
Right. Thank you. And you had a question earlier. Do you still have it, or was
Yeah,
it answered?
I do. You had discussed, I can't remember the name, but the district-wide person, you would give training district-wide to our administrators and teachers and staff about, and my guess is more in-depth on different issues that we deal with on a regular basis. Do you also include in that what signs to look for and what to do in more detail for students, not just who wish to harm themselves, but are wishing to harm others in school?
Yes.
That is a big,
So I think you're talking about the professional development and working
Correct.
with teachers. Yeah,
Correct.
definitely. Those are some of the topics that are covered. Is practical. We want this to be practical. One thing I didn't even mention is that we also provide families and then separately teachers with a monthly psychoeducation newsletter dealing with topics like this, or it might be how does social media impact learning and behavior, et cetera, depression, anxiety. It's background information summarized in one page and then bullet points. My point there is always actionable steps. How do I use this information tomorrow, either in the home for the family or in the classroom for teachers?
so it goes to all families in the district?
Actually, we typically just have it for the ESS families, but some of our districts have put it up on the website for everyone to access it. And then the teachers get one. That one's called Solutions. The teachers get one called Insights. Same idea, but just geared towards the different settings.
I have one question. For those students that are very unsafe to themselves or others, are your clinicians equipped with how to physically handle those students? And how do the SROs fit into this if there's a need for that kind of help with a student?
Well, I appreciate that question, because this SROs, whoever you have in the building, one of the things we need to do right away when we partner with the district is know and understand your crisis protocol so we can follow them. We do not lay hands on students. Not at the elementary level, where it comes up most often. That changes therapy. And I know that from residential treatment when I was working with students who were actually living at the site. The therapist never handled the students. So we don't do that, but we're involved in what we call processing all of that, because that can be very traumatic. So in therapy, working with them on that, and then, yes, always vigilant about it's safety first, period. So those situations are not unusual, unfortunately. So we're ready to support you in that.
When does this training take place for the administration, and how does this fit in with the other training that's scheduled or taking place?
You mean like the professional development? Right. Yes. So we're working with your PD schedule, just from my end, and then I see you're looking at Dr. Macri. PD schedule.
And Dr. McLean is very, very she covets that schedule. Just from prior experience, and Dr. McLean, feel free to jump in. We have a PD schedule that we adhere to, and we prepare it a year in advance. And of course, it can change slightly as needed. However, what I noticed in previous district, not only, so for example, you can have a PLC, professional learning community, grade 6 teachers say, listen, we're really struggling. And coach says, or Sue, we have students who are putting their hands on each other, and especially in grade 6, and people are having a hard time. If it's a small group of select people, we'll find coverage so that they can be provided with professional development. In my workings in the past, we had professional development that was voluntary a lot. That was where a lot of people showed up. A lot of teachers showed up to what they thought they needed for their classrooms based on some of the topics that ESS provided. They loved the newsletter because it gives you so many practical strategies to use. And then they said they wanted to hear more. So they wanted to hear more. They told us what they wanted to hear more about, and we made it happen. So there might be times during PD, and it's a touchy subject because if Carrie wants to add like 5 more PDs days, but she doesn't realize that it's $75,000 a day every time we added a school day to the calendar. So we have to be creative, but that doesn't mean. My experience has been in this situation, when you're struggling in a classroom as teachers, you're going to show up before school, after school. We find coverage for you, whatever we need to do. But it's that was really a successful piece of this program. And what I love about it is they don't just worry about the high school. They help us everywhere, straight across the board. Just quickly, we were jotting down notes like, a good reason of why having a resource like this for elementary school is because they come with all this expertise. The hardest part in elementary is where we are doing holds. We are putting hands on. And the clinicians don't do that at the elementary level, which is another reason they can help us with how do you de-escalate and give us all these so that you don't have to do that. But it takes time with the little ones to get to that point, which is why it's a good reason to start at the secondary level. But the PD for the elementary level is priceless.
Are there any other questions? Matt?
I'm so sorry. So if you had a team, if we start off at the high school, you had a team here, 2 clinicians, the director, the 4-level team you talked about, you would still be doing PD for the entire district?
Correct.
Or just for the school?
Nope, entire
so
district.
there is a benefit to the entire district, even starting with just one team.
That's our tier 1 approach.
Okay. So then the other questions, I'm assuming that this is the case, but I want to make sure because it wasn't mentioned. Are your clinicians attend PPT meetings for these students as well and participate in them?
Sure.
Okay. And the last question I have, I promise, I swear, is with regard to healthcare for your staff and liability. Should something happen, that's on you?
That's on us.
You're just contracted and you take care of all that?
They are our official employees.
I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay.
I appreciate all the questions.
Thank you so
Covered a lot of
much.
territory.
We really appreciate it. It was a lot of information. Thank you for answering all of our questions, and
Thanks
have
for
a
having
safe
me.
3-hour ride home. Okay. Up next, Miss Maya Pavlick, the District Teacher of the Year.
Yes, last but not least, first I would like to thank all of our teachers, our school teachers of the year. We're so very proud of all of our teachers in Cromwell. They work tirelessly. It's a really hard job. It's always been a really hard job. It just seems to be getting harder each day, and with the political landscape that we're in. I appreciate everything that they do every single day. I'm sure you won't be surprised when I read these names to you. This was a really, really tough year to make a decision. We had Christian Plord from ECS, our school psychologist, who was our teacher of the year. Nicole Sylvain, our grade 4 teacher. She's just recently married. Buck, yes, I remember it. And I will save Maya for last, Mrs. Pavlick at the middle school. And at the high school, Miss Christina Williams was our high school Spanish teacher of the year, and you heard her speak at graduation. We are incredibly proud of all of these people. They're amazing. With that being said, it was a difficult decision, but you always have one person who just stands out, and Maya just stands out. She just, and I'm going off script. Let me stay to my script, because otherwise I'll just get too emotional, because Maya is who I wanted to be when I was a teacher, and I know her heart is here with our students every single solitary day. But I would like for Miss Maya Pavlick to come to the podium as I say more wonderful things about her. So please come to the podium, and then you can say your You can speak. Mrs. Pavlick is an exceptional social studies teacher. Her thoughtful planning, inclusionary practices, and strong desire to make our students and everyone around her good people is unwavering. I cannot tell you how many times we have conversations about how to help the community. Maya does incredible work with the community, but she encourages the students to learn that at a very young age. Her passion for students and teaching and learning is inspiring, and it's contagious. You walk into her classroom, you don't want to leave. You walk by the hallway, you want to run into her classroom. When we really use the word teacher, to me, as a teacher, it has so many definitions. And it's so pure and admirable. She will do anything to make every child's life better because they have met her. And she emulates that every single solitary day. She works with students and families, her colleagues. Her colleagues love being in the hallway with her and collaborating with her on ways to improve the life of each child that we serve and other kids that we don't necessarily serve in the community and in other communities through community service. Teaching is a gift to Mrs. Pavlick. She's intelligent, she's empathetic, she's patient, she creates a sense of community and belonging for all adults and all children. So it is my distinct honor to work with Mrs. Pavlick and to proudly introduce her as Cromwell Public Schools 2023 Teacher of the Year. So, Mrs. Pavlick, before you start, I know you got your pretty flowers on opening day, but we just wanted to give you a little
Thank
something
you.
else, a little ray of sunshine.
Thank you
for all
so
the
much.
sunshine you bring to us.
Thank you. They're beautiful. I love flowers.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it so much. Thank you very much. And say a few words.
Oh my goodness. I'll keep it just kind of short and sweet. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, it's a joy to come to work every day. I really love the kids. I love everybody I work with. You know, it doesn't feel like work when you get to be with the kids and all the people that you admire so much. So thank you so much for this honor. It's something that I take very seriously, and I'm truly grateful. So thank you so much.
For Convocation, Teacher of the Year speaks. And Mrs. Pavlick, not only did she speak and inspire, and it was so uplifting, but she brought back 7 students. She kept telling me 3 students, then 4, then 5. She couldn't narrow it down. So we had 7 students speak that day. And they selected a teacher that made an impact in Cromwell on their lives. And we had all ages of students, and they selected teachers from all ages. And when I knew Maya was our Teacher of the Year, I said, we don't need to hire a guest speaker. We have Maya speaking. She's going to be better than anyone that we could possibly hire. And she brought in our students. And to hear from the students, the teachers that made an impact on their lives, going all the way back to kindergarten, all the way through teachers that they had last year. And then all the teachers got to come up and take pictures with the students who spoke about them. And it was just priceless. Wonderful idea. And it's about that's what being a teacher is. It's about how you impact students and how they remember you. And they may not remember you today or tomorrow, but 10 years from now, you may have said something or done something, and they will remember that. So thank you so much for saying and doing things that kids can remember positively every single day.
Thank you.
So
It's
thank
a
you,
pleasure.
Mrs. Pavlick.
Thank you on behalf.
Be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the flowers.
Sure, and I forgot your gift, so we'll get that to you. Another reason for me to come see you.
I would love to see you. Come stop by tomorrow.
Sure,
All right,
okay.
I'll look for you.
See ya.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Okay, we have the CMS Building Committee update reference C in your packet. Rosanna Glenn could not be with us tonight, but she did provide an update. Do you want me to read it, or if everyone has it?
To you.
And for anyone that may be watching, it's on the agenda. There's a link on the agenda that can be clicked. We have an action item. Update on the 2022-2023 district school calendar, references D and E. And so in looking at them, it looks like there is just one.
Already voted on this last year, but then when we put it out. We forgot to change it for this year, just making sure that we have CMS and CHS marking periods the same. You did vote on this. We talked about it.
Yep.
Okay.
We just messed up, and since you have to approve the calendar, I just need you to reapprove it.
Okay, is there a motion? Catherine, is there a second? Alan, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries, and the new calendar is approved. Item E, budget calendar 2023-2024, reference F. And this is something we do every year, just setting our budget calendar. Do we need?
This looks the same every single year. It seems to be working for us. We just wanted to give it to you up front so that you know what to expect and when to expect it.
Any questions? Okay. End of year policy committee report, 2021-2022. We do have a copy of it for our board members, but it did not make it into the packet, so it will go out attached to the minutes, I believe.
Yes.
And that's right, the policy committee annual meeting, annual report. And next on our agenda, principal updates. We don't have Mrs. DeTuno here because of open house, correct?
Jessica Gregoric.
Oh, you're gonna be doing the- okay.
Offered to do it.
Great. Would you like to start?
Right. I wanted the principals and the assistant principal to stay at the school, obviously. There's so much on the calendar, we missed this. So thanks, Ms. Gregoric, for pitch hitting.
Definitely. Hi, Jessica Gregoric. Lucille asked me to come give the update because she's got a lot of exciting news, and I spend a lot of time there. So I'm here giving you an update on behalf of Lucille DeTuno. She's at preschool, kindergarten, open house. She says the new year is off to a great start. Students are eager and happy to start school and get back into their routines. They held their first pep rallies on Friday, September 9th to kick off their iReady assessments. The students learned what a pep rally was all about and really enjoyed participating. A special thank you to Jen Jones, our reading specialist, for organizing and getting the iReady mascot. It was so much fun. We met with all grade levels to review the ECS way and the school-wide behavior expectations. Their first fire drill was a success, and they'll continue to practice safety protocols for fire and lockdown drills. A special thank you to the Cromwell Police Department for dropping off a hefty amount of school supplies. Thank you to them. And Mr. Tuno said the most exciting, we got word that the replacement slide for the ECS Playscape has arrived and should be installed soon.
And issues because we cannot buy one off of Facebook Marketplace. I'm sorry. We have to make sure we meet specific standards in a school. It's been on order since late spring, and this is the world we're living in right now.
Yes.
But we are excited to get it. I hope it's purple.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, we'll hear from Mr. Butwell for Woodside.
Hi, everyone. We also had a great opening to school, and it's wonderful to have our students back. With the lifting of many COVID restrictions, I think there's an extra sense of excitement this year with both students and teachers. At the elementary level, to start the year with having students sitting together at the front of the room on the rug and being able to do small groups again and having kids sit around your table, I think that's so important. It's just part of that elementary environment that we've missed so much over the last 2.5 years. Some other highlights at Woodside: we returned to just 3 lunch waves, down from 6 for the last 2 years. The kids are very excited to all be back together with their entire grade. I think for me the biggest highlight was that we had an all-school Woodside Pride Assembly on the very first day of school, and it's the first time that we've been together as an entire building for a very long time. So, and we realized that many of the kids at WIS, or possibly all of them, had never experienced that due to COVID. They missed, we've been doing all of our Woodside Pride stuff through videos and Zooms. So it was so exciting to just have that on the very first day. We talked about school expectations and behavior, but also just how excited we were to be back at school. And there was a lot of energy in that room. Our teachers and staff members have been doing an amazing job and working so hard to make the beginning of the year positive and successful for all of our students. And of course, I do want to definitely give a shout out to our custodians and great administrative assistants who did so much work during the summer to get the building ready and get all the orders and supplies ready for the classroom. To match Mrs. DeTuno's report, super excited to announce that we got our backboards replaced over the summer. They were taken down during COVID, and we had a little bit of a hard time locating them and then replacing them. So students were able to start the year this year playing basketball, which is terrific. So lots of smiles all around, and it's been a great team approach that's led to a very smooth opening this year at Woodside, and we're very happy about that.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Boatwell?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll hear from Ms. Cochiola for Cromwell Middle School.
Good evening, everyone. I have to echo my colleague's sentiments. It was a great opening. There was so much. It was so wonderful to begin the year without masks and all that. It was just a different vibe. We were also we spent a lot of time this summer reviewing and revising what we used to have as our CMS Cares, our PBIS and we revised it this summer, and then on the first day of school, we held we call them the State of the Union address. So we called in all this, the 6th grade, the 7th grade, the 8th grade, and that was also exciting to be able to get the kids together again in the auditorium to assemble as a whole class. So that was great. And then we spent the rest of that week at a kickoff assembly on Friday, where we trained. All of us had lessons where the kids were immersed in what does CMS Falcon SOAR stand for, what does that mean. So it's our character matrix combined with the element of the restorative practices piece. So this was really exciting that we get to, and then we spent the day again on lessons and learning for that week, and then we had a really fun raffle and for the kids and for the staff. So it was really a very. Some of you, I heard from Dr. Macri, said, what does it stand for, SOAR? Well, when you first look at the 4 character traits that we chose, it was stability and respect. And what does that look like throughout the SOAR? So we had to make a statement for that. And it says, when we SOAR, we show tenacity, act responsibly, and respect our community in order to achieve personal excellence. So that's what SOAR stands for. And then I too want to thank the support, tremendous, and also to say it was also, we had a great open parents. It was the first time they've ever seen the building. So then again, that was a very thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Catherine has one.
With
just 1 second.
Sorry, Catherine.
With the COVID restrictions lifted, are they allowed to eat lunch in the classroom all the time now?
You mean in the
In the cafeteria, and not in the classroom?
We are still going with the one team in the CAF and one in classrooms, and then flipping it. And we're still going to do that.
Are we going to change it throughout?
For now, we're happy, and the kids are doing well, so we're going to stay like that for a while, and then we'll see about revisiting it.
And it's not really necessarily
COVID.
It's not necessarily.
Oh, but the kids get to sit with whom they want, within that classroom and stuff. So there's no restrictions in that regard.
It's trying, which is why everyone has had a difficult time adjusting. Middle schoolers have had a really hard time adjusting. So we wanted to get off to a really positive start.
Mm-hmm.
We had to pull back the reins a little bit. Last year was not an easy year. And that there was a lot of work being done in the summer with teachers coming in and staff coming in and talking about things that we could do to get back on track. And this is part of the piece of getting back on track and making sure that we're keeping everyone safe. It was really just what we needed to do for now.
And the kids actually enjoy the options of going to the CAF and to the classrooms, because then in the classrooms too, they get to watch Disney or whatever while they're having their lunch and socializing at the same time. So it's not without, some good times and downtime for them.
Well, and looking at the principal reports too, you have a lot of numbers in the middle school. I mean, you have a lot of students in each grade compared to the other schools, so I can imagine.
I think we had
having that
over
many in the-
30 new students this summer come in. Mm-hmm.
Quickly, lockers, are they being used?
They're on their way.
They're on their way to
Right.
being used?
Yeah. They're on their way.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Kuckel for Cromwell High School.
All right. The school year, I would echo again what everyone else has said. It's been a great start. It's refreshing to feel that sense of normalcy again. Our routines are certainly in place, and something I've enjoyed as an administrator popping into classrooms is I've been able to walk in and not see cell phones out. One of the biggest things that we did as a staff is we recognized the harm that these devices were doing to our students. And we're just all on the same page. When you're in the classroom, they're not out. So that's been refreshing for me to see. It's been refreshing for the teachers. Olivia, you might think otherwise, but it has been a delight. Advisory as well, new initiative for us that we've launched and popping around last Friday. I was able to see the potential of where that program can go. I visited Unity Club. There were 30 students in there. I visited Ultimate Frisbee. Kids were playing. There was 40 kids playing out, having a great time. Walked around to Chess Club. Same thing, 20-plus students in there. Popped into a math class with the math teacher. She was helping out 4 or 5 different students with, extra work and extra things that they needed help on. So that program is getting to a point where we like to see it, where students are picking and they have choice to go where they want, to get some extra help or to participate in clubs and activities. So that's been a wonderful thing to see and see the potential there. Athletics, off and running. You know how that is at the high school. Once we get going, it is fast. The athletics piece. This year we also were able to hold in-class meetings, which was nice, full class in the auditorium. And one of our big points of emphasis this year has been sportsmanship by our students. It's something that popped up last year that we wanted to really focus on this year. And coincidentally enough, we had those meetings, we talked to them, talked to the students about that. And simultaneously, the cheer team actually was in the process of working with our student athletes to create a TikTok. I still have to download TikTok. I don't have that yet. But I was able to view it, and I was able to figure that out. And we found out about it through the CIAC because they had actually seen it, and they said they were just very proud of what they saw, and we were proud of our students as well, because they essentially created this video that is just emphasizing fan participation, but then also how to do it the right way. And that was something that was just driven by the cheer team themselves. They took that upon themselves to create that, so that was awesome to see. In terms of the CAF, transitioning, we do have 3 lunch waves down from 4. Going smoothly to this point. We also have an alternative CAF location, which students are excited about, and that is right here in the Library Media Center. That is something that actually came from the pandemic that we realized students really liked, so we have this alternative space for them where they're able to come here because the CAF now, believe it or not, 3 waves, it's packed. But that was... It's hard to remember that in 2019, that's what it looked like. It had been so long since I've seen a cafeteria full. And so we have the students in there. The seniors are outside enjoying their time there. On rainy days, it gets a little tight. But again, you have the alternative space here that students can come to if needed. And then in terms of parking spaces, there's just a lot going on right now at the high school. Thomas came to us about having seniors paint their parking spaces. I know Olivia mentioned it in the opening minutes. And Mrs. Binnington and Thomas worked pretty closely on that to make sure that it would go off the right way. And I would certainly, you'll want to check that. But to Olivia's point, there are some fantastic And that's really what I would call it at this point, out in the parking lot. Those are going to get beat up pretty good. But it is a wonderful, wonderful thing, a great bonding experience for our students and our seniors, I should say. We are also getting ready to test for iReady. I did hear that there's a mascot. I love mascots. I might want to borrow that. I might need that. I'm sure he's adorable. I would love nothing more than to adorn that mascot.
A mascot from when they were little, so they'll
Oh,
love
they'll
it.
they'll
You
get a
laugh
kick.
at me, but we need to have that same pep rally with the kids at the high school.
I
about
know, I
iReady.
know, you know.
We're bringing over the mascot.
You can bring it over. I'll put it on. I put the Panther on last year. I'm good. And then in terms of, we had our open house, and that went well. Open for some time. So it was nice to just get families in and have an in-person open house and not have to worry about technical issues that seem to happen every year during the pandemic, where there was an outage only in Cromwell and things of that nature. So we were happy to have people back in person, and I'd also like just to give a shout out Cromwell donations we received from them, as well as Carly Nelson and a former for the summer worked exhaustively cleaning up our auditorium area and really getting everything up to speed and where it needed to be, and doing essentially a survey of what we had, and making that auditorium and organized. And we were very thankful for their efforts on that front, because we've been using that space a lot this year to start off the year. So it's been wonderful to have that. And we also do have lockers, and our hall monitor, Curtis Searle, actually had to show a student how to open the locker. They were struggling with the combination. I think it's been so long they don't know the whole spin in one way, spin in the other. So we have lockers are a go. I still don't see students using them except for that one that needed help. But they can use them. And last but certainly not least, we are looking forward to the month of October here at the high school. It will be a very busy but fun month for us. Between indoors in the gym again, and then we finish that week out with homecoming. So it'll be a very exciting October for us here at CHS. And that's our opening update.
That was a lot.
Yeah,
Any
a lot going on.
questions?
A lot going
Thank
on.
you. Any questions for Andrew? Okay, Catherine.
Is there a home base for students when they're, I know we discussed it in the fall, but when they're in advisory, I mean, there's all
Yes.
these different places they could go, but do they have a home base if they don't have anywhere to go?
So that's the one area where there was some confusion, where we're working on that with students. Many think that if they just want to stay with their Connections teacher, they didn't have to sign up. And so we have a lot of students, not a lot, the small percentage that did not sign up, it's because they just went to Connections. And they didn't understand, no, if you're going to go to Connections, that's fine, that's your home base, but you'll actually sign up in Scheduler for that. And that's just a growing pain that we'll have solved.
So they sign up for wherever they want to go during
Yes.
advisory, and that's how we keep track of where
Yep.
all the students are
Correct.
and everything, okay.
Yep. So would we have adaptive scheduler? It shows everywhere students are signed up, how many are enrolled. Teachers take attendance that way, and that's how we do it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on our agenda, action item, approval of minutes and motions from the August 9th regular meeting, referenced G in our packets. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our August 9th meeting? Okay. Okay, so we'll get those corrected.
When you gave the announcement for the budget surplus, it was 1946. Is that just because it changed when we approved it at 17?
Oh, yes, probably. And,
Because you had it down as $1,946, and the report tonight was $1,700.
Do you mean from the last
last
meeting?
oh, yeah, that's just books. There's sometimes a few
Immaterial.
lingering here and there.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes with the change made by Mr. Schuman? Motion by Diptes, or second? By Kelly Cloutier. All in favor? Opposed? Matt will abstain, and Catherine will abstain. Okay, the minutes are approved. Item I is an action item, stipend approval for the 2022-2023 school year. Reference H in your packets. Are there any questions on those? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the stipends? Jen? Motion by Jen, is there a second? Second. Oh, I saw Matt. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion passes, stipends are approved. And next in our packets, we have informational human resources personnel activity, reference I. We have our list of new hires and then also our resignations, and we will note that we'd like to acknowledge.
Retirement. He's retiring.
Yes, sorry.
That's why he looks so happy.
Go ahead.
Tommy Latwinzik, our director. I'm sure he started off as a manager of facilities and has now turned in. What were you? What was your title back then? You've had so many. Manager of IT. Well, that was 15 years ago. Today, our director of district operations, who oversees facilities, safety, and security, and
why don't you come to the podium?
Yeah,
for
come
this?
to the podium, Tom. And IT. Has made a decision. It's interesting because when you say I can't wait to retire, and then when it's time to retire, I think it's bittersweet, right, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work still yet to be done, and it's just been a difficult last couple of years. Looking forward to it, and somewhat regretting to leave because I mean I did a lot here, and I've still a lot to be done, as you well know. But before my wife changes the locks on my house, because she's been down in Virginia for the last year, so I've been up here by myself, which is never a good thing.
Tommy has the history. We talk about he knows where everything is and
The
what's
bodies,
missing,
the
and
bodies. I know
he
where the
knows where he is. The bodies.
bodies.
One great thing about Tommy is Tommy already knows when I'm going to be upset with him. So he actually gets in front of that bus and says, I know you're going to be really mad. I'm like, Tommy, I already am. But truly, I have enjoyed working with Tommy. We've had some very serious and very upfront conversations about what needs to change in this district operationally and in a lot of different ways. And I respect that honesty and those courageous conversations that we've had. And he has taken on, he just kept getting more roles thrown on him as years have gone on. And I think a lot of that has to do with that he actually likes and enjoys learning about a lot of new things. And he's done it, and he's done it well.
I don't like to sugarcoat things either.
Yeah, and neither do I. So that is why we get along really well. Just get to the point. Let's figure this out. And we always do. So I can't thank Tommy enough for his commitment to this district, for the last working with me. I know I'm not always so easy, peachy. I appreciate everything that you've done for us, for the district, for me, for our students. You take your job incredibly seriously, especially safety and security, and I've always admired that about you. We don't skimp in those areas ever, and that is really because of Tommy. We really can't joke around too much about safety security at all, but I could joke around about facilities with him, so that's a good thing. I've said this in many different forums. If you know Tommy and you talk to Tommy, we all complain about our spouses or our significant others quite often. Tommy has nothing but the utmost respect for his wife, and the way he talks about her is just amazing. And he tells me he's just happy that she tolerates him after 35 years. But then, making sure that he's taking care of his family, his daughters, before he left and moved to Virginia. And I admire him for that. And he took care of us like a family, just the way he took care of his own family. So I begrudgingly accept his letter. But of course, we have to plan to move forward, and Tommy is going to stay on until November 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to look at restructuring a little bit. And we'll talk about that at the next meeting, because we want to make sure that this is about Tommy and how we're going to move forward for this evening. But Tommy, I thank you for everything you've done. And I'm going to miss you because who else am I going to yell at when you're not here?
I'm sure there'll be others in line. But I do thank you for the kind words, and I really do appreciate it. And I really did like my time here in Cromwell. It's been a roller coaster ride, and it's been fun.
Thank you on behalf of the board. We appreciate you. I've enjoyed working beside you at our regular meetings or facilities meetings, security meetings, all of it. If anyone ever had a question, school building meetings, yep, you bear with us with everything. If there's ever questions, usually the answer is ask Tommy, so I'm a little nervous. But
email, did you see it?
I did.
It's right in here in the letter. We can I already told him we'll be calling
We'll
you.
see how long that number lasts.
And he'll be picking up, so he'll miss us, so he'll pick up.
But congratulations.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, were there any other questions about that personnel report? Matt, did you have a question? Oh, okay. And then we have the informational principal reports, reference JKLM. I know there's a question from Alan.
I'm going to ask the question again. It's not differential calculus. It's simple math. As a banker, we always like things that balance and add up. Number of students in the pool, out of the pool, and the change. How come it doesn't come close on these numbers?
So why don't I have, because I try to explain it, I do my best, but how about if I have the principals come up and help out with as far as how, I think it really comes down to when the reporting is being done.
Okay.
So he's
And-
talking, just to clarify though, that number one says number of pupils
Hold on,
in
let me check.
membership. Let's say for, I just looked at middle school, 231. Number of pupils in membership on last report was also 231. But then we have new students and then students withdrawn, so there's a net of 1, because it was 3, then 4. So you would think that item 2, number of pupils in membership on the last, number 1 would change by 1.
Right.
And that's consistent with all the mix up at the high
That's-
school.
In the high school, or not, the high school's okay, but at Woodside and Edna, just, the numbers just don't. And
So maybe we can look at
you know,
that.
if you're in the pool or you're out of the pool.
Right. I think there's a lot more to it than that, and Lisa is the expert on this. But Alessandra, when you register kids, because Alessandra's here, so let's just ask her. Is a kid being pulled out of these numbers before they actually disenroll? That's the only thing I could think of.
So it's complicated because when a student registers, they have to be completely so when they go through me to register, they're not necessarily at the school yet because they're doing their registration paperwork. So they're not a student until they get to that school level.
So
So really, the new student is their first day of school at that building.
So is it possible that a student could be being counted from the school level, right? And at the district level, perhaps not being counted? I really don't even know how to explain this anymore because I really feel like I understand what Alan is saying. So there's got to be a piece that I'm missing, and I'm not sure exactly.
Mrs. Cochiola is going to try to clear it up,
go
I
ahead.
think.
Because there's the report is being done. But if the report is
We
being
really can
done-
do simple math, but it absolutely has to do with that. Those that withdraw, and then from the time they withdraw, they may not be withdrawn from the number. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 that are off from there. So it's just how we have to document for that month.
So you're getting numbers, it's basically 2 reports. You got the coming and going,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got another calculation for how many kids you got.
Because this isn't the first time, I've been questioned
No,
before.
I asked you this on a Zoom meeting in January or February, and there's something about timing, and I said, okay, and then I'm thinking about it, and it's been bothering me since that this doesn't.
And that's still the same case.
Still the same, okay.
But it sounds like more helpful is the piece of the timing of when this is created, but that kid that you may think is moving in and moving out, it's simple math, but it could be two totally different kids. One could be moving in and one could be moving out, and it could be
And then there's some
completely
we
different
can't
kids.
count until it's an official withdrawn, you know, that everything is signed and sealed, delivered.
So in Edna, sees just the number of pupils in membership was 248 males, and previously it was 241, and there was no new ones and no withdrawals.
I can't speak, I can only speak for
okay.
CMS.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Would it help if there was a date on the report so that you know at least
Well,
that on that day, that's how many students there were?
So let me see if I can clarify this. It's like a student in seats. The first two lines are like a student in seats number.
Right.
But there's going to be a report that has new students this month. There's a list of 15 new students, let's say. They're not actually in the seat yet, but they're on that list of new students.
It is two different.
Yeah.
It is two different reports.
Right,
One in
right.
and out, and one.
Right, and
just number of
students that are
bodies in the
actually
chair.
leaving, they're still in that seat, but they're leaving. They're still going to school every day, but they're
Still
leaving.
accounted for.
So that's why there's like, does that sound about right, Mrs. Cochiola? Or she's not listening
Mrs.
to me?
Bennington is saying yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting from this, is that there's like a list of here, we know these are leaving and these are coming. Although they may or may not be a student in the seat, we know what's going to happen with them.
So, to the principals, the administrative assistants complete this report. So we should really look to make sure that all of them are completing, and I know Kelly's been working on that, to make sure that they're completing it the exact same way from each other. Mr. Butler.
Question about this month's report versus the last report, why there's a discrepancy in that number?
No.
No. The discrepancy is that, well, to keep using the same example total number of pupils in membership is a certain number, and then it's the same as the prior month, but below that, it does say new students this month and students withdrawn, so it's not reflected in the first number and the total number. Doesn't seem to be. But I think we answered the question, right? Do you accept the answer?
I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but
If it's two different.
the reason
reports.
why we do it this way is this is the way. Maybe we could have Kelly come, because we do our reports based on how we have to report it to the State Department of Education, which makes no sense. Yeah, exactly, on how we have to report
Well,
it to them.
If it's two separate kind of numbers as opposed to,
Yeah.
one report, it's two, then okay, then that's understandable.
Yeah, we need to really get an answer for this, because Lisa seems to, we all have our ideas of why it's off, and I think it's a combination of all of this. But I think the way Catherine explained it makes the most sense to someone who's not in this. It makes sense to me, and I can't explain why it makes sense to me. It just does, because it changes so quickly. And I think that's probably the best way to explain it. These are the kids who are actually in those seats at that time, but there's movement anyway. Ghost movement, I should say. Anticipated.
Kids on waivers,
Yeah.
okay.
There could be so many different reasons, but let's ask, principals, let's ask the administrative assistants to work with Kelly so that they can give us a good explanation for this for next week, so future agenda, next month, sorry. And just to double check to make sure we are doing this consistently across the board. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good.
All right, we have no policies on for second read, but we have A through J for first read. Are there any questions on any of these policies? Is there a motion to move them to second read? Motion. By Catherine, is there a second? By Dipty, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. These will all be brought forth to the next meeting for a second read. We have board committee reports. Item A, the policy committee met on August 9th. Reference X is that the minutes? I'm sorry. Just double check. I think those are the minutes from it. Okay. So that's just informational. And then tonight, the Facilities and Technology Committee met. And Jen is our new chairperson, and if you'd like to go over some highlights from this evening's meeting.
Sure.
The most exciting item, I guess, that everyone's been waiting to hear about would be the culinary kitchen, which unfortunately has been delayed due to an electrical sub-panel not arriving until December 2nd. So that's going to be...
He's retiring. He's like, thank God. No. We've looked into other places. Tommy has done his due diligence and working with the architect and the contractors to see if
I got a new lead tonight.
Oh, you did?
From the Facility Technology Committee member. And
Oh,
so
oh,
we're
you
gonna
got a new lead. Oh, I was outside. I'm like, what do you mean? I just got excited. I
So-
thought they told you it was coming
No,
sooner.
no, we're going to see if we can source it somewhere else, but, we'll see how that works. But right now, it's literally a supply chain issue. It's just, it's a esoteric piece of equipment. It's got to be specific to our building. I mean, it's not that esoteric, but it's not something you put in every day, so.
So we're going to start with Plan B. Mr. Kunkel wants to talk a little bit about Plan B. It's not pretty and foo-foo, but it's something. And we're going to work with the police department and Tommy, of course.
Police department?
What? Sorry, fire department.
Maybe fire department.
Fire department. I'm too tired.
Fire marshal,
To
somebody.
fire marshal to make sure we're doing everything that we possibly can to be in compliance.
Yeah. Essentially there's a few classroom locations that we're going to see how many appliances we can hook up, essentially before, a fuse blows. So that way we can do, it's the reality, that is what it is. Blenders, griddles, microwaves, things of that nature, because there's like a breakfast unit they want to do, which would be perfect given the circumstances that we're in. Blenders, things like that, smoothies. So they'll be able to go that route. That is a backup option, because ultimately that kitchen space, until it is, that panel's in, we'll have no juice there, so we can't even use the space if it's done. The hope is that they're going to keep going with the project and more or less come close to finishing it, aside from getting us the electrical needs. But again, it'll just be a nice space that we won't be able to use yet. So we have that backup plan, working with Mrs. Dooley on that, and that can get us at least through, December. So it's an unfortunate, unexpected setback with that one piece. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a decrease in the amount of students taking this course for fall?
We had, so remember this when I ask for a teacher soon. We had 320 requests for foods this year. And we have, we're filling that, we essentially are meeting the needs of 120 of those students. So there is high demand for our foods program, especially with 2 years of not having it. And there's always high demand for that program.
So
we could have that.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Once you do have the panel, how quick can you get everything together for the next, because it's a half-year course,
Yeah,
correct?
my understanding is, so we would be done towards the end of January, but my understanding is that they would need probably at least 2 weeks to have them come in and approve the space, have the permit, the inspection, to approve it once they get it installed and up and going. So December 2nd, best case scenario would be, I think if we're lucky, maybe the week of Christmas break or winter break, that we'd be able to actually use it. But even then, that would be based on it being done, so that way we can actually get in there, stock the shelves, do all that stuff. Originally the date we were told was end of September.
And do we have all those alternative items that you mentioned, like the griddle and the blenders and all those things to
Yes.
make do in the meantime?
Yep. We have those. Some of those are coming from Casa de Cuckle and other places in Casa de Macri. Yep. But we do. We have that stuff. So at least they'll be able to have more of a cooking experience, which will be helpful. But unfortunately, it's a significant delay from when the original date was.
Okay. It's not good news, but we have to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you. Was there anything else from facilities?
Sure. Yep. Dr.
Thank you, Mr.
Macri
Cocker.
started. Is it a monthly meeting with the town and the school employees for the small efficiencies? Is it?
I don't know. It'll most likely be starting off monthly. It might need to be maybe twice a month, maybe in the beginning. It's just getting us all on board. together. I just asked for a meeting with town employees and Board of Education employees to look at two small things, which are a big pain in the neck, and that's mowing fields, facilities, and efficiencies. There are times when our person is mowing, literally weed whacking and mowing on the other side of the fence when the town is doing the literally 6 inches away. So we're just going to talk about that. The chair people are Kelly Maher and our AD, and Scott Kiris, Director of Parks and Rec. And this way there's voice from each side. And then we're also going to do an inventory of things that have been donated to the Board of Education, which is wonderful because we always love free things until they start not working or going badly, and then they need to be fixed. And there's been a lot of finger pointing, and I sent an email to Town Manager Salvatore and the rest of the directors, and I said we could do better as a town. This is not a problem that can't be fixed. We could fix this. We just need to actually talk about it and then create meetings and set it in stone, and that's what we've done. We have Lynn McKinney who's going to attend the meetings and take minutes so that everything is documented. We're going to develop a spreadsheet of the inventory of things that we have on our property and who's going to maintain them and what that looks like, who's going to pay for it, etc. And then we're also going to make sure that we look at develop a form so that when someone comes to us and says we'd like to put batting cages or goalposts or whatever and we're donating them, that it goes through a certain process. So is it really going to planning and zoning? And we'll know because planning and zoning will have signed off on it. So there's a form that we're going to be developing. So we're working together, but the Board of Education is more than happy to, public schools. We are more than happy to organize it and make it happen. And I think we're on a good path. Did I miss anything that you wanted me to make sure? Okay.
That's good. And then there was also just a meeting to discuss the 5-year capital improvement plan, and Tommy represented the schools for us. And there is hopefully going to be another, it was a good beginning to discussions, but there's hopefully going to be another meeting in the future to talk about that a little further. Anything else you want to add?
And then
about
maybe
that?
now's a good time to mention, and maybe I missed it if Mr. Kuckel mentioned, but we did also talk about the electronic pass.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So that's something that
So
they're
they're
working on at the
piloting,
high school.
right, a new electronic pass system at the high school. Okay. Yeah.
Any questions? Do you want to explain it? Do you want Mr. Kuckel to come up? Do you mind just a quick overview?
So the ePass system, I'm going to have Mrs. Bennington explain a little bit about that. It came to our attention from a teacher, and it's something that we looked into. And I'll have Ramsey elaborate a little bit more on it.
Hi, everybody. So the ePass came to our attention last spring. We had a lot of students moving throughout the building, and it was taking a lot of time for teachers to constantly be writing passes and student accountability, and the students kind of felt like they were being micromanaged and felt like there was a lot of attention being drawn if they had to leave the class for something. So a teacher had brought it up to us during the summer. I had the chance to attend PD on what is called the Smart Pass program, and it literally blew my mind. As soon as I got off the call, I was in Andrew's office and I said, we absolutely have to have this because it allows our students to have a sense of independence and ownership over when they're in the classroom and when are they out of the classroom. There's a sense of privacy that comes with logging a pass through your computer and not having to have a conversation in front of your class regarding why you need to be leaving. It provides our hall monitors with an idea of who should be in the hall and who shouldn't be in the hall. So no nobody's getting called out for being out of class too often or feeling like they're being targeted for any reason, because the hall monitors can see who should be in the hallway and who shouldn't be in the hallway. It saves our teachers time in terms of instruction, because they're not having to constantly stop what they're doing and physically hand write a pass that has a time, a location, their name, and then alert anybody of where they need to go, because it's all been documented in the system. So what will happen is students will log on in the morning through their Clever account, which is their general sort of baseline technology piece. Our teachers will log in as well, our hall monitors, and then Andrew and I will have admin over the entire system. You log in for the day, and it tracks your schedule. So when you're in for instance, the math rooms and you sign out to go to the bathroom, the expectation is that you go to the 700 bathroom, and that's listed there. You've signed out of Mrs. Randazzo's pre-cal class to go to the 700 bathroom, and it's on your computer, your Chromebook, which the students are working on every day. And so it sets a timer that like, oh, you have 10 minutes, and that's our class cut time. So if a student is out of class for more than 10 minutes, they get a class cut. So it will set a 10-minute timer that you have 10 minutes to go do what you need to do, and it's green for the 10 minutes. And then it turns red once you exceed that 10 minutes. So that's an alert to our teachers without them being distracted from their teaching that, oh my goodness, somebody's been gone for more than 10 minutes, and that's something I need to be aware of. The teachers will have it on their desktop computer. It won't be displayed. No other student will be able to see where they'll go. We can also add certain passes for students who maybe need to have an open piece that will be on their private hall pass system. Teachers can also set how many students can leave their classroom at a time. So for example, a teacher might say, well, I only want 2 students out of my classroom at any given time. So the hall has set a cap at 2 students out of the classroom. So let's say Mr. Kuckle and I have both signed out. We're out of the classroom for 2 minutes, and Mrs. will say, I have 2 students out. Their estimated arrival time is 5 minutes and 32 seconds. So it now sets a clock for Dipti that in a will be able to go where you need to go. So there's no like watching your clock. We talk about we want our students to be available for instruction and to have that sense of intent. Those boxes. And again, our teachers aren't constantly being interrupted, that they're tracking students down, writing the there in the hall pass. And then the nice piece for us is when we talk about, again, going back to our main goal is to educate students and make sure they're safe when they're in our building. We know where all of our students are. We know where they should be. It's a safety piece for us. And then the cherry on top is when we're struggling with a student who is maybe not being able to access their education, we can go into the hall pass system and see, you know, how many times are you actually leaving class during the day? Are you leaving every period? Are you leaving 3 times in the morning, once in the afternoon? So that gives us more data so that when we're sitting down to have conversations with parents, with students who are struggling, we're having conversations that are grounded in data and not just generalizations. So we are super excited about getting this program up and running. It will take about a day to build it once we get the green light go, implementing our students' name, getting our teachers' accounts, and our hope is to have it up and running this month. Any questions?
Matt?
2, only 2.
Okay.
So is there a way so the student disappears for 10 minutes, they get it turns red on the teacher's screen. Is someone sent to go check on that student? Like what if they fell down in the bathroom, they slipped and got hurt? Like, is that part of this?
So typically when students are out of the classroom for more than 10 minutes, our teachers are asked to give the office a call, and then we notify our hall monitors, and our hall monitors go look for them. What this simplifies is the teacher not now having to watch the clock or watching their time, because they can just look at the screen for their students. Oh, that student's red. I need to make a call.
So it's on the teacher's Chromebook screen.
So the teachers can upload it onto their desktop if they still have a desktop. Many of our teachers just have the laptop now since the pandemic, but it's on their private screen. It's not something that would ever be displayed in the classroom.
I'm getting is like if they're presenting from their Chromebook, it can't be something that's up on.
No, it's
a
a privacy screen.
Okay. And the last question: can the teacher set it so that no one can leave within the last 9 minutes of class?
So teachers are going to have the autonomy to really set what they would like to be in their classroom. They can set how many students can leave. Teachers can also modify how long they want those students out of the classroom. Our push is always that our cap is 10 minutes for a class cut, so we like it to be consistent, if not from classroom to classroom, then at least department to department.
But any teacher can say, within the last 9 minutes of class, no one can leave. My closure is going to be really important today in this lesson. I need everyone here. So as of this time, no one's allowed to leave.
Yeah,
after
so
that.
teachers can freeze or reject passes.
Catherine?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So you said this keeps, the privacy of students. How do they ask to leave a class?
So it's electronic. The student will actually go on to the SmartPass app, which will be available to them through Clever, and then they register for the pass through the class. They don't have to raise their hand. They don't have to have a conversation with the teacher. It's all done electronic.
Okay. And another question is, will this tool potentially be used for disciplinary? I know that some of the bathrooms have had issues.
So I
and
think
there's been students who aren't comfortable using certain bathrooms, even though it's the closest one to whatever classroom. So
This is important. I'm sorry, Ramsey, to cut you off. When something happens in the bathrooms or wherever, it could take days of an investigation. So are we going to constantly be looking and someone monitoring it, constantly to catch someone? No, but if something happens, for sure, this is going to be the first thing we go to. Who was out? Who was missing? It's going to help narrow that investigation, save time for the administration to actually be in classrooms and be instructional leaders, and then find those students who are repeat offenders and do something about it much quicker. This is going to help us, and it's not just to catch you, it's to help figure out why you're
no, I don't think
those
it's a
behaviors.
I don't think it's a negative thing. I think
No,
it's
no.
a positive
So it's
if we
positive.
can
No, no.
use it.
And we want to make sure that we are looking, we're looking at it for a myriad of reasons, but that'll be really helpful, because when you're doing an investigation, oh my God, by the time you ask kids and call, we still have the cameras and everything else. It's pretty intensive, but now when you have that information and you have how many kids they've been out, how long they've been out, when they've been out, it's so helpful.
I mean, it takes, for example, if something happens in an unstructured area, a bathroom, for example, it takes hours on the video camera to identify the students that are in there.
Yeah,
This system will
nightmare.
allow us to triage it much quicker, find out who's there, find out what happened. And if things are happening in those bathrooms or anywhere in the building, we should know about it. And so we don't want students to continually avoid a space. We want them to come to us and say, hey, there's an issue going on, down here. And students are able to report things anonymously all the time to us. And we would encourage them to do so, because we can't fix the problem if we don't know, that it's happening. But yeah, that's definitely a huge advantage to it for us, that we can actually move quickly, much quicker.
And my final question is, it hasn't been implemented yet, you said, but you've presented it to the students. And what is their, have you heard any comments or?
So I think change is always interesting, right? We have kids who are always ready for change and always ready for something new. And we have some kids who are just not really certain. And I think until we have the opportunity to really roll it out and have kids play with it, it's technology. So some of them really love that piece, and some of them are kind of like, hey, what are we doing with this? Like, what's going on with it? Yeah, are you tracking me? And once they get it rolling and they see, no, this is really a way to give you independence and give you some privacy, that's our biggest push here. Like your question was, like, will it allow us if we're doing investigations? It'll be a nice compliment if we're looking for kids on the camera. And sometimes our cameras are just not that great. So if we can pinpoint who's supposed to be in that area, like through a camera, and then that's fine. That's tertiary to the real purpose here, is to free up our teachers for instruction and allow our students to move through the building in a way that allows them autonomy.
And we've had, to be transparent, have we had a small percentage that are, concerned about that piece? Yeah, about the tracking component and things like that, but it would be the small percentage that we're worried about that are in the halls all the time. I'm being completely transparent about being tracked and whatnot. Yeah, we do have cameras, so we are already tracking them. This is just making it, more efficient. And for 95% of our students, this will be, once they see it and see how it works, this will be a non-issue. And then, for other 5% that need a little extra support, like that's how we're going to use it. Not as a gotcha, as a, what do you need? Why are you leaving class all the time? How can we support you better in the classroom?
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right. We're down to topics for future agendas, and Oh, sorry, we don't need to prove anything. Are there any other possible, I know we have to clarify the principal reports on the next meeting, but other than that, anything else? Okay. We'll go around then for any comments or updates and announcements. I'll start with Matt. Anything? Alan? Okay. Jen?
I was happy to attend the CMS open house, and it was just like a wonderful energy. The teachers were great, and it was just so nice to be in the building. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Anything?
I just at convocation, I really I wanted to make sure I thanked everybody, including all of you, and Selena was there in representation, but thank you for everything that you do for us and for our staff, especially for our students, and the time that you give. And I also want to thank our administrators, because you know what? I don't think I thanked you that day either. Since I have you all here publicly, worked really hard to change schedules, lunch schedules, regular schedules, PBIS, looking at so many different things. So I don't really think I mentioned you, but you're all here now, and so I want to say thank you publicly for everything you've done. Sorry I forgot about you. I guess I just look at you as part of me, so an extension of me. So, but thank you. It's appreciated.
I agree. Thanks to everyone. It was a wonderful opening. And I agree with Jen about the open house. I unfortunately couldn't stay for too long at the middle school, but the high school was super efficient, and I just loved being there and in person. It was really important. It looks like it was somewhat well attended, so it was great. Catherine?
Kudos to the schools for having a great opening, and especially the high school and the middle school, since you completely revamped your entire schedules for the year for the students. So great job on the smooth transition for everyone.
And Kelly? Dipti? Is your mic on?
Just going to echo Jen and Selena. It was great going to the CMS open house, meeting the teachers, seeing the classrooms.
Great. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Matt, second. Jen, all in favor?